Centres of Excellence were announced statewide yesterday at the launch of Education Week. In the Hunter region, 20 had applied for the honour, the final 5 being Newcastle, Broadmeadow and Singleton High Schools, Bel Air Public School and Mayfield West Demonstration School. The assessment was based on the school's ability to display outstanding achievement or quality in a particular project or activity. But while the schools honoured were basking in the glory today, the Teachers' Federation was quickly on the warpath, labelling the system as a frothy proposition promoting anxious children, confused parents and alienated teachers. The Federation also said it was an insult to the schools who weren't named. But this afternoon, Cliff Williams, Assistant Regional Director of Education in the Hunter, hit back at those accusations, saying that it was generally accepted that schools throughout the Hunter were all performing excellently.
You will find in any school a centre of excellence in some area, and yes, it is difficult to isolate it. Some of the schools out there are saying, why not us? And we obviously will be looking at all other schools and applauding those areas that are outstanding.
Local Teachers Federation organiser Jane Norman said the new system had been sprung on the organisation and that meetings were being planned in the Hunter for the first possible date to discuss action teaching staff may take to voice their objection.
There was a public outcry when the application went before Council last month. Worried Lake Macquarie residents feared if the Escort agency got the go-ahead, it could lead to an uncontrolled number of similar agencies setting up throughout the Shire. The agency planned to operate from a top-floor series of offices above a computer store, pizza parlour and Chinese restaurant on Pacific Highway. 4,200 petition signatures were received in 10 days from residents who feared an increase in crime, drug use and a safety hazard to passers-by. But today a spokesman for the Protesters Action Group said although they were relieved, they would still seek a council rejection of the concept of an escort agency.
The council really must now look to what the people of Lake Macquarie have said, that they will not accept any escort agencies in Lake Macquarie, and they have to make a clear, firm policy decision now not to accept any applications in the future, simply because, based upon the outcry that's taken place, which has been so tremendously successful.
Along with schools from across the Hunter, teams from Tamworth and the Central Coast played in the round-robin competition, vying for more than $200 in prize money. The competition is organised by the university to foster junior rugby league and make prospective students aware of tertiary sports. The Sevens brought out the best in all sides with plenty of spectacular breakaway tries and strong tackling. The grand final will be played tonight at University number 2 Oval.
Well, I would make it from there. I would be stuck by the time I got to that line.
Meanwhile, Rutherford High School is celebrating the break of a 10-year drought for the Hunter by winning the New South Wales Combined High School's Stan Jones Tennis Trophy knockout. Rutherford's team of Rodney Way, Mark Steele, Christian Duma and Scott Francis were highly favoured to win the two-day tournament against 9 other schools, although their finals rivals, Epping Boys High, included State Schoolboys number 1, Jamie Holmes. In the end, depth made the difference, Rutherford winning the trophy 5 sets, 35 games, to 3 sets, 28 games. The last Hunter school to win the event was Merewether High in 1978.
Will take in a wide variety of keyboard music dating back almost 1,000 years. The pieces will be played on instruments they were actually written for, such as the harpsichord, clavichord and forte piano. Paul Dyer and Richard Tognetti from Sydney are just 2 of the artists who will perform and teach at the festival.
Almost $24,000 in prize money is being offered, including a $12,000 overseas scholarship for a local musician and $5,000 for an original piano composition. The festival will continue tonight with an organ recital by Principal of the Conservatorium, Michael Dudman.
The Lochinvar auction is recognised nationwide as Australia's top market for Olympic discipline horses. Among the 2,000 at the winter sale were buyers from Japan, Southeast Asia and Britain. 64 horses were on offer, but the star was clearly Supertramp, a 9-year-old gelding billed as a surefire gold medal prospect.
And you can see that's one-handed pirouette there. And this type of horse probably needs the flying change to the right. Ladies and gentlemen, a very, very special moment in Australian history, Lot 18, Supertramp.
While Supertramp gave a crowd-pleasing display, bidding climbed to prices previously unheard of for an Australian performance horse.
At 130,000. At 130. At 130,000.
But even this amount wasn't enough to convince Supertramp's owners to part with the world-class thoroughbred.
We'll have to put him out. I'm sorry there's more money on him. We'll have to negotiate privately. Thank you very much for the losing bidders for their spirit of bidding.
Negotiations over Supertramp's sale continued today. Heath Ryan from the New South Wales Equestrian Centre says it's hoped the gelding will fetch as high as $200,000. It may sound a lot, but breeders insist Supertramp would top the $1 million mark at auction in Europe or the United States.
We broke the Australian...
It was a game that had everything, and the massive crowd of 27,500 certainly got their money's worth. 20-year-old knight Paul Harrigan has played strongly since coming into first grade and will learn a lot coming up against players like Lewis, although he wouldn't mind a more gentle lesson. But he knew the Knights were in the match all the way.
It wasn't until then, there's a few decisions that went against us, like Glennie Frendo's try and a few other decisions, but like I said, the white flag didn't go up.
A stunning opening burst by the Knights saw them lead 10-0 after only 4 minutes, and a huge upset was on the cards.
I knew we got off to a disastrous start. If we could just stick to our game plan, not try and play catch-up football, all of those things that bring you unstuck, I knew we'd be okay. And that's basically the way it worked out. The Newcastle came at us like anything in that last 10 minutes, and we hung on.
Leading 2016, the Broncos were under siege by the Knights, and Glenn Frendo seemed to score the try that would have levelled the scores. It was waved away, prompting Knights coach Alan McMahon to throw his weight behind the call for in-goal touch judges.
If you were the touch judge, particularly on Glenn's try, all the touch judge has seen is Glenn's leg over the sideline and coming in contact with the post. He hasn't seen the point of impact with the ball on the ground. He didn't give him the benefit of the doubt, I believe. Certainly not so much with Terry Madison's, because if he was ruling on that, he would have ruled a try because he would have forced the ball correctly. Where he did need attention, particularly the referee, was to check whether Matheson was in front of the kicker or not, and replays clearly indicate that he wasn't.
AWS's news conference on what could have been attracted a great deal of interest. However, there was little but the obvious to add to the mountain of information which has grown around the bid.
We felt it was very appropriate to come back to the heartland of AWS and say thank you, first of all, to all of those people who've helped us.
It was obviously a difficult occasion for the executives who last week thought they would now be preparing to build frigates. The consortium released details of its final bid today. AWS had brought its price for 12 ships down to $4.5 billion, well within the defence budget. Unfortunately, Amicon was able to scrape a further $350 million off that price. Chairman of AWS, Rolly Hoy, however, doesn't believe that was a good enough reason for awarding the contract to Victoria, as he says the Dutch ship would have been cheaper in the long run.
If the government had wanted the cheapest vessel, and it appears that in their selection process they have selected the cheapest buying price, then they shouldn't have selected the M-class frigate as one of the two contenders.
Mr Hoy admits New Zealand's inclination towards the cheaper ships probably influenced the decision.
They are probably in more serious financial trouble than Australia, and perhaps price therefore is more of a driver.
AWS has hinted that the government may have always planned to opt for the German design, but today Rolly Hoy tactfully avoided confirming that allegation.
All of us in this room probably have our private opinions. I think that that's the way they ought to be kept.
Also on hand today was the man who will probably feel the impact of the decision most. Federal member Alan Morris says he can't argue with the Cabinet.
It made the right choices as a government of the whole of Australia. As a local member for Newcastle, I have a much stronger personal view about both the vessel and the consortium.
And of course, as the local member for Newcastle, you're likely to feel at least some of the flack from that decision. Are you going to lose your job next election?
Oh, that's possible, Ross. I mean, I've always known that by getting involved, trying to mobilise and generate Newcastle into the next century, that if we didn't win, I'd get the blame.
The mood is very different, of course, south of the border. The champagne flowed freely at Amicon's Williamstown dockyard yesterday, where Premier Kane was treated to a hero's welcome.
We're going to have a first-rate shipbuilding industry in this strait, and you're the ones responsible.
And with the tender now safely in the bag, Managing Director of Amicon, Dr John White, was quick to defend the win.
AWS and the New South Wales government have for some months now claimed that they had the best ship. That's an outrageous claim, which is not backed up by any fact at all. The facts are that Bloom and Voss, the West German designers and builders of the MECO frigate, have won practically every international competition in recent years against the Dutch design. The MECO...
Blue skies are good news to AgQuip Limited, the company which won the $38 million contract for this section of the Sydney to Newcastle Freeway. Persistent rain has seen machinery lay idle for a total of 2.5 months this year. But work has now begun in earnest, with 3 of the 7 major excavations well underway. The 6.7 kilometre sector stretches from Palmer's Road, near Freeman's Waterhole, to Wakefield. This section alone involves shifting 3 million cubic metres of rock and earth. These huge bulldozers, valued at $1 million apiece, are literally moving mountains. However, it's not all happening according to the timetable set down by the federal government back in 1984. According to the publicity, you should now be seeing cars, not bulldozers. In fact, the brochures promised a completed bypass of Newcastle by the end of last year. To date, the freeway is built just short of the planned interchange at Palmer's Road. Major excavations are underway on the sector to Wakefield, but a further 12 kilometres lies ahead before the F3 reaches Lenahans Drive, north of Minmai. At current estimates, the long-awaited road system should be entirely open to traffic by the end of 1993, some 5 years after the scheduled completion date.
Eglo is currently working to full capacity, building sections of the second FFG frigate for Amicon's shipyard in Victoria. The modules built here will be barged down to Williamstown for assembly. The company will do much the same sort of work for Amicon on the Anzac frigates, although this time the pieces will stay in Newcastle for assembly probably at a revamped state dockyard facility. Eglo is a member of the Transfield Group, which also owns Amicon, but manager Otto Bruin insists the company isn't guaranteed any work.
We'll have to be competitive. We'll have to tender on these jobs the same like everybody else has to do.
However, Herr Bruin admits it is very likely Eglo will receive a large slice of the local work. Adding a note of caution, however, the head of the economics department at the University of Newcastle, Professor Barry Hughes, speaking from Sydney, warns Newcastle could easily lose what it's promised.
Instead of getting a headquarters yard, we've got a branch shipyard, and water doesn't flow uphill. If things get into difficult times, then it's usually the branches that start suffering first.
Meanwhile, a grey sky was a fitting backdrop as AWS lowered the flag on its Newcastle operations today.
I'd hoped this would be flying for 20 years. Seeing each ship launched.
The AWS office was open to high expectations in March this year. However, instead of growing to hold 200 staff, it remained simply the Newcastle manager and company secretary as the AWS executives grew more doubtful they would secure the contract.
Would have been nice to win, but you win some, you lose some, so we just have to move on.
The model of the Dutch M-class frigate, the focus of so many presentations over the last 2 years, has been offered to the Regional Museum. Even as AWS moved out, the face of the State Dockyard site was changing. The Department of Public Works is spending $300,000 to remove the old asbestos cladding and roofing. Amicon has said it plans to do shipbuilding on the site, but has no intention of creating the sort of high-tech Vision Splendid which AWS had proposed. AWS will finally say goodbye to the Hunter tonight when the spotlights on its giant billboard are turned off. The sign itself will stay there, probably to be put to use in the near future by Amicon. However, as far as the Newcastle Consortium's concerned, the story that it wanted to go on writing here well into the next century is over almost before it could begin. Ross Hampton, NBN News. It's understood the Education Minister plans to give top Teachers College graduates a lift up the seniority queue to more desirable teaching posts. The idea is to encourage the best teachers to stay in the public school system. Teachers Federation Senior Vice President Sharon Burrow is touring Hunter schools today. She says the approach is an affront to teachers.
I mean, while we believe that there ought to be some system to attract and retain new graduates, what experienced teachers see is simply another slap in the face from this government, who's now suggesting that there is greater quality in new graduates than in experienced teachers who've given long service.
The plan will upset many teachers who've been transferred from schools with declining enrolments on the understanding that they will have preference in new postings. It will also be viewed harshly by teachers in less popular schools in the far west.
They've gone out west on the clear understanding that that would gain them some incentive in the transfer process. Clearly they will see the few vacancies in the Hunter, the North Coast, Sydney and the South Coast probably go way before they get a chance at such a transfer.
The Teachers Federation will hold a state executive meeting next Tuesday where a swift response is planned to the government proposal.
Although there's no solution in sight to the pilot strike, no similar action is expected to hit the Newcastle region's two main commuter services, Aero Pelican and Eastern Airlines. Trevor England, General Manager at Aero Pelican at Belmont, said today pilots working for Commuter Airlines were under a supplementary award, quite separate from the one that's at the centre of the wrangle. However, the Air New South Wales service, which operates once daily to and from Williamtown, has been affected, with both today's and tomorrow's services cancelled. At Belmont, slight time changes have been made to several services to help passengers make connections in Sydney. One flight has been cancelled tonight because of lack of passengers. However, Eastern Airlines reports it has made no changes to its scheduled flights.
North Nelson Bay went into today's match on a high after a good win over highly rated Lakes United last weekend. Both teams defended better than they attacked, and tries were non-existent in the first half. Brett Winkler broke the scoring drought with a penalty goal and then an impressive field goal. The Marlins were also forced to resort to a kicking game, Carl Press notching up 2 points before the whistle. Maitland failed to take advantage of one of the few chances it had of adding 4 points to the total before half-time, the referee ruling a double movement. However, they made up for the error early in the second half. Glimpsing a chink in the tight Marlin defence, Greg Eger kicked and ran in textbook fashion. Maitland now meet the loser of tomorrow's clash between Wests and Souths to be played at Harker Oval.
At the Businessmen's Club today, Professor Keith Morgan stated that amalgamation of the university, the Hunter Institute and the Conservatorium of Music still has a long way to go. However, he said that once it's achieved, Newcastle industry will benefit. By drawing upon the combined institution's resources, a solid computer engineering base can be established in Newcastle and a science park developed adjacent to the university. According to Professor Morgan, the park will bring together a range of science-based industries which will draw from the institution.
First of all, of course, we've got a very strong university centre that they could draw on. But we also have a lot of other scientific research activity going on in and around Newcastle. We have the BHP, Central Research Laboratories, we have CRA, and we have a whole range of other research activities which are based here in Newcastle.
The science park would encourage other industries to the region.
This is usually regarded as a catalyst for bringing further industrial developments, particularly at the high value added end of industry, to complement the strong industrial base that we've already got here.
AgQuip is principally geared to the broadacre farmers of areas such as the Breeza Plains, and with many properties still unworkable after one of the wettest winters on record, the turnout this year is bound to be impressive. Last year, around 100,000 rural and would-be rural folk donned akubras and flocked to the 182-hectare site. The 17th AgQuip is expected to at least match that figure. The positive rural climate was reflected in increased demand for display space this year, and organisers couldn't be happier.
On the one side, the dealer introduces all the new product. On the other side, the farmer can come along and do his hard bargaining. So it's, I think it's established itself as a marvellous selling day.
The reason AgQuip attracts such a large number of companies is because it's seen as a serious selling environment. Organisers claim 64% of farmers come here expecting to buy. Last year, $25 million worth of sales were done on site and a further $60 million made in follow-up sales. The same sort of impressive results are expected from this year's field days.
We're looking for distribution channels for our own products that we manufacture in Canada, and we're also looking for products in Australia that we can manufacture for the North American market.
If you look around, there's always something cheaper than what you'd buy in town, that's for sure.
What brings you to AgQuip? Things like this that you can't get in one spot.
After two relatively good seasons and with bumper wool checks in many pockets, AgQuip is serious business. Most companies send their top sales reps to the expo, and if you've time to listen, there's no shortage of willing talkers.
Ties back in, but the beauty about it is it's portable.
Four folds back under, so they won't catch their feet. Yeah, as you know, you don't fill it up, they'll go down quick.
AgQuip is really a microcosm of rural Australia, from the biggest to the smallest. You can buy the best of a breed, the right look, the latest helping hand, even things that don't seem to have anything at all to do with farming. Perhaps most importantly, for the man on the land, it's a chance to talk deals, talk weather, talk crops, well, simply talk. For lunch, of course, the obligatory steak sandwich. Only city folk would have found the company somewhat disconcerting. AgQuip showcases the latest in agribusiness technology. There's even a thinking tractor now which will tell you exactly how much it's costing you. However, some things never change. Elvin Vale Stud says the most important worker on any property is still the humble sheepdog, and brought along 3 5-week-old Kelpie protégés to prove its point.